Next up, we're going to look at our asteroid script. Now we haven't completely finished off our player script or our bullet script as of yet. These are going to be tied back into some of the events and the actions that happen around the asteroid. So we're going to go ahead and get the asteroid moving and going inside of the game, and then we can start looking at how we tie these back together, how we adjust some of the properties on our prefabs, and how we set them up to interact with each other. So let's start off by just going in. We've got a preset here. We're looking for our asteroid script. We're going to be setting up our inspector variables, our private variables, and then we're going to put it all in our update function. So to start with, we've got our basic variable. We're going to set it up so we have a speed for it, our asteroid speed. And we'll use this to control through the inspector the speed that we want to move these objects. And the next thing we want to do is we want to translate this object going down. So let's set this up, and we can use a different setup this time. We'll do our transform, translate. And again, this is just a 0, 0, 0. Our XYZ variable, what direction do we want it to actually go? Now, let's say we want to use one of the shorter approaches, just using the vector. We'll do a vector 3 dot down, and this simply sets us up so that we're using our y-axis going in the down direction, negative direction, and we're going to multiply this out times our asteroid speed times our time.delta time. There we go. So we have written the equivalent of where y is actually just a negative asteroid speed times the time.delta time. And this is just our shorthand for it right in here. So go ahead and hang on to that. Now sometimes you may even see different approaches where we can take the asteroid speed, the time.delta time, multiply that out above it. We could make a variable inside that says this is our new speed equals our asteroid speed, our time.delta time, and then just replace it with one variable instead of actually doing all of the multiplication inside of that translation. So it depends on how you want to set it up, how you want to approach it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. We're going to go ahead and leave it just all in that one line though for right now. Now this should get our object moving down on the screen. So we'll save this guy out. Go back over into Unity. And let's drag in a prefab asteroid. We've got it set up right here on the screen. We're just going to pull this up just a little bit. We'll hit play. There we go. So we got the object, looks like it's falling down. It is going down and down and down. So we need to set some limits so that our object will get to a certain point and then reset itself back up to the top. So, on this one, let's do a check. Let's check for the bottom of the screen. That's a nice way to do it. And to check for the bottom screen, we'll be doing a conditional statement. We're looking for an if transform position. And what direction is this? What axis? We're on the y-axis. So if the y-axis is less than or equal to, and what we determine is the bottom of the screen, we can just drag this down. We clear it somewhere around a -5, so let's go ahead and make it safe. We'll say -6. So if we're below -6, what do we want to happen? We're going to be resetting the position of the enemy. So to reset the position of the enemy, we're simply going to be taking the transform.position.y, which is this right in here. We're going to be taking that position of this object, and we're going to move it. We're going to make it equal to whatever variable gets us above the screen up here. So we'll go in, we'll say the y position equals, looks like we're somewhere around 8. So we'll say 8. Now the next thing we do, if we were to just save this and run this, let's kind of get a feel for how that works. Make sure that it does work. So it goes down, and then right when it gets to the bottom, it recreates itself back at the top. We'll zoom out a little bit so we can see the action happening here. So here we don't have to instantiate the object. We're simply just reusing the same object, which is good for us. It's good practice. When it gets to the bottom, we're just going right back up to the top. So it's saying if that position is less than or equal to -6, and then if it is, then let's just reset that position to the top of the screen. Now what's happening here is that we are resetting, but it is a little bit predictable. We know that it's just going to drop straight down each time. So what we want to do is we want to look into a way to make this a bit more random. So let's type in random in our API. And when we get in here, we do see a random. We see also a random range, returns a random integer between a min and a max. And what else do we have? Let's go ahead and just go to our main random. What do we see in here? We've got the seed, the value, and inside of a sphere, a circle, and then a rotational random. Let's go ahead and just do the range. So in here we can find that we've got a function for the range. We've got a min and a max float variable, and it returns a random float number between the min and the max. So this sounds just about perfect for what we want. Let's go ahead and go back up to here, and what we want to do is have a min-max value, a random value return for our x-axis. So that way it's going to randomly get created somewhere between our value that we want left or right of the screen. So let's start this off. We're just going to be filling in this variable here. We're going to make our transform dot position dot, and this is our x-axis. We're going to make it equal to the return value that we get from our random. So we're going to say our random dot range, which we see just right here. This is just our random range. We're just filling in this function, and we can see that it wants a minimum float, a maximum float, and it's going to return that float for us. So we're going to say, let's do a min and a max, and that min and max, I think we're pretty close to. Let's drag this down so we can see it. We're somewhere around the 8 to 8, so we're going to say 7 to 7, so that it keeps us inside those boundaries pretty good. So a random range of, let's say, -7 and 7, semicolon to end it, and that way it's going to find a random number between those two, feeds that back into the transform position.x, and it'll randomly create a new starting position. So we'll save that out, we'll give it a shot, we'll hit play. There we go. It's just randomly finding a new position for us. Very nice. I'm going to go ahead and put a 0.0.0 here. Okay, so we've got the randomness left and right happening. We've got the object being recreated back at the top. So we are good as far as getting our asteroid objects to start falling from the sky onto our airplane. So let's see if we can pretend we can dodge this as we go. So you can see as we start to move, we also want to start shooting. But if we start shooting at it, we don't get any kind of interaction. If we run into it, we don't actually explode in any way. And that's what we're going to start looking at next. We're going to try to find out how can we create that interaction between two objects when we actually have an event happen. And doing the events is nice and simple, and we'll look at that next.